Hi, I'm Rolof, and today we're doing some laser cutting and engraving. Now this is quite a unique feature to this Carvera machine. It comes standard with a 2.5 watt diode laser module. It's not very powerful, but it can accomplish some really good looking results. The software that we recommend is Lightburn, but you can also use other laser cutting softwares. You just need to make sure that the post-processor export in the correct format, and you can refer to our post-processor format for Lightburn to make sure that the machine understands the code. A perpetual license for the software is $60 and also has a 30-day trial period before you make a decision on that. Now the first thing to note when using this laser module is that it needs to be used with caution. UV rays from the machine can be really harmful and not only to your eyes. Please wear the necessary protective gear. The goggles only has the necessary protection for yourself, so also take into consideration bystanders. If you are planning on using the laser function on the machine for long periods of times, I do recommend getting a laser cover like this one. This will be available on our online store soon. When doing large pieces with deep engraving, the laser burn can cause some smoke on the inside of the machine. Another option to look at is some air extraction. An external vacuum or the external vacuum outlet can be a good option for this. There are also materials that are not recommended to be cut with a laser and can cause a release of toxic gas that could be really harmful. So just do research on the materials that we're using on the laser module on the machine. Some materials like polystyrene paper might even catch fire, so never a good idea to let your laser run without monitoring. Obviously, wood is a great material to laser cut, from hardwoods to softwoods, MDF and ply. Other materials like denim, fabric, cardboard and felt and foam and even some metal coatings work well on the machine. Some materials that won't work too well is with a 2.5mm diode is the clear acrylic, metals, glass and some other wooden materials that has moisture in it. I've tried some oiled bamboo and I just couldn't get any penetration because of the moisture in them. So enough talking, let's get right into the software and how to set up your laser jobs. So we'll start by just opening the Lightburn software. Now there's a few things that we need to set up here before we get going. First of all is setting up our post processor for this. So you can just go to our website, go to the softwares tab, and then if you scroll down you'll find over here download the Lightburn profiles. That'll download automatically, and then I'll just go to this downloads folder, extract this in the same area. Okay, that's fine. And then we go back to Lightburn, and then at the bottom here where you say devices, where you see devices, you click on that. And I've already set up mine, but to do it you just select here and you say import. You go to that downloads file and this LBDF file, you just select that, open, and that will show up here, and then the export will be in the right format for the machine to understand. Just remove these ones as well. So basically that's all you have to do to set up Lightburn. Now this is the latest version. I'm just going to show you a few tips and tricks on how to set up your jobs. It's a really simple process. If you're doing basically just like a logo, it's a very simple process. Here you have some operating functions, but we are not going to use that because our machine is not directly connected to our computer. So the only function that we'll actually use here is to save the G code. So, and here, like this is also, you have the option to actually design your own images. You can use all these functions to create your own shapes. Here you have some measurement tools. You should just select if you want to maybe resize something to the correct scale. And then you see some more options. Use your Boolean functions, radius functions. But I'm not going to mess around with creating something on here. The only thing that I will do is I will just import a few things. Just select So I've got images, 1, 2, 3, 4 images, and then a DXF, and I'll just drag and drop that in here, and then you can see some of it. I haven't set any scale to any of these, so let me just take these pictures, just kind of sort them out. So on this side, your layer section, you can see that to see what layer is which is on, you can just select output, and you see these are the 4 images I've selected, and that's the output. And the DXF, this is a PCB board, so this is actually imported as layers. So here you can actually output whatever layer you want. If you want to remove something, you can take it out here. So it's exported as the way that you've exported from your PCB design software. So this actually reads the layers from there. And if you have your board set up and everything is ready to go, you can obviously, if you select this, put it right in the corner, you know, if you want to use this as anchor point 1. You see, because our device is already set up as my Kiri, this is our spoil board size. So it's 300 by 200 high. So then you basically can just put it in there. You don't need the outside border, so you can switch the output off on that, and then all the inside, I think I might have scaled this incorrectly, but that's fine. So you can remove and add whatever you need to laser. And then basically, if you're done with your boards and you just place it into anchor point 1, and you hit save G code. So sorry, before you do that, you just double click on this. Just make sure that your power is set correctly and your speed is also set correctly. Now the speed relates to the speed on the machine. This is not gonna be affected if your max speed output is set on the Carvera controller software to. So if the controller software is set to 4,000, which mine is set to, and I make this 5,000, it's not going to affect the speed of the cut. So, and max power, you know, you can push it up to 100 depending on how deep you want to go. But this is settings you can play around with to get your personal preference. I'll keep this at 60, and I'll hit OK. And then it's as simple as saving the G code, calling it whatever you need to, and hitting save. And then you have your code for if you want to do a laser engraving on your PCB board. Now there's a few other things when it comes to pictures. Let me just resize this a little bit. I just randomly selected just a few pictures just to show you the few functions that Lightburn has. I think each of these ones will actually show you what it can do. So let's start at the top here. This is just the logo, but you can see the logo has got quite a wide blank size. So that's the logo, but the image is quite big. So if you actually put it like this, and the edge of your image actually overlaps the outside of the board, it's actually not going to export this image. So if I say save G code, it will give you an error. One or more of these shapes are crossing the edge and will not be sent. So if I say yes, it's not going to export the file with no code in there, because this is not being read by the export. So that's just one thing I have to note. Obviously, if you want to do logos, importing it as black only is the better option to get better results. For example, this one, you have the gray scale of the text at the bottom, and then you have the black at the top. It's quite hard to get the same effect. If you want to do that, you know, it is possible to do, but you're gonna have to play around a little bit just to figure out which is the correct settings, depth of cut, power, and speed to get the results that's required. So that's just on logos. Obviously, you can scale it as big as the board. And then if it comes to pictures, now I can show you a few things here. Just scale this, automatically scales if you drag it from the corner. So if you have an image like these two and you want to trace it or modify it, there's probably just two modifiers that you use to do this. So I'll use this example for tracing, and I'll use this example for editing and adjusting the image. So if I've got this microphone, but I actually don't want the picture like this, because if you look at it, it's going to be very dark on the edges. I actually just want the detail of this image over here. You can right click on this, say adjust, no, sorry, not adjust, go to trace image, and then you've got a few options just on how you're going to trace this. So I'll just bring it down to 0, and I'll say sketch tone, and you can just set your threshold to where you need it to be. If you need a little bit more detail, a little bit less, I'll hit OK. And if I drag this off, you'll see that it actually traced this part of the image. So it's all grouped now, so you can just ungroup this. Delete if there's some detail you do not want. And then you actually have a traced image. This will probably work better with characters, or maybe something man-made, something physical. It doesn't really work too great with faces. I'll give you an example. If I trace this image, I hit OK. You see, that doesn't really justify the real image. So that's just an example, just to show you. Let me just undo this. Okay, there we go. So yeah, that's an example of tracing. Like, you can do this with a lot of images and then get this results. I'll show you an example. And if you're doing actual images of people, and I usually don't modify the image, the standard settings is quite good in a sense of results. So, but if you need to, and if your speed and your power is set to the maximum or 100, but you need to change the depth of the cut or the burn, you can actually go here to maximum power. I'll go to 60. You can get really good results on 100 as well, depending on how big the picture is, because it's made up of tiny little dots. So you can set this to, my best results was on 70. So if you're okay. But if you want to modify this slightly, get the contrast, bump the contrast a little bit, then you go to adjust image, and then you can actually here increase your brightness and your contrast. See, this is a very light area of her face. So if you want to gray it down a little bit, you just bring down the brightness. And if you want to see this as a preview, you just right click, say preview, and this is the results that you're going to achieve. You can see it's just a bunch of small lines, but maybe that's a bit too dark. If the power, but also now you have to play around with what your power settings is, so it's a fine line to figure it out. But like I said, like the standard settings that it has is quite good in showing good results. You see, this is a little bit better now, but that's a very white area. So it's for personal preference. You're gonna have to play around with the software to get the results. And then finally, when you're done with your artwork, say now this is a combined image or a lot of images, the only thing you have to do is you just go save G-code, save it to whatever name you need to, hit save, and then that will be exported with the origin over here, and Bob's your uncle. Very simple software. There's some more modifiers at the top here that you can play around with if you're doing your own creations on the software. And yeah, here you can set your size of your image over here. You can lock that image in place, this is the positioning. You can just switch the picture here, and some more modifiers here you can play around with. So you can see a very simple software. Let's move on to the machine. I'll show you some examples. So I didn't film too much of the laser cutting the material, just due to the UV rays might damage the lens of the camera. So just keep that in mind if you're filming your own projects. This is a piece of mahogany. I cut at a 100% power and 4,000 feed rate. The result was quite good, and the penetration was about 0.2 millimeters. This was the result of cutting directly on the solder mask. There was no penetration, but it did lighten the area quite well. I tried the same file on some denim, and this was the result. And then I used a different logo just to mark one of the tool cases. You can see it's a lot smaller, and the bottom text is gray, so it's a lighter engrave. So this is a test sample that I cut with the different powers on the laser. Don't mind the first value of these. That was the speed settings that I changed in the software before I knew that you can actually, or there's a limit set on the controller software parameters, and mine was set to 400. So if the value of the speed is set to more than 4,000, or more than the value that's set on your controller software, then it's not going to affect the cut. So anything less will, but if the max value is set, then it's not going to affect this. The power will still affect. You can also obviously in the controller software change it with a scaling of 100% or minus 100%. So the results I got here was quite interesting. This one was not the traced image, so this is the only thing that's out of place here. But then what I wanted to test, from 60 upwards you can get some good penetration of the material with the laser. Obviously the first samples I just showed, that was done with 100%, so you can see the depth that it actually achieves. But here you also got some depth that you can see at the end of the logo. I just used my finger to feel the depth of the groove. This logo has a gray text at the bottom, so this is why you can see here it actually totally disappeared. But on 30 power you can actually see more detail on fine small images. So the face obviously is not recommended because you lose so much detail on this. 50 to 60 was quite a good power for engraving these images. On the image also, if you look at her hair over here, you lose a little bit of detail on 60. When I went to 50, you can still capture some of the detail, but then again, if you look at the face, you got a lot more shading on the face on 60 and a little less on 50. So it's just a sample. Maybe you can screenshot this if you need to for reference, but this is now just engraving on the MDF. But you can see on 50 you lose a lot of detail on fine tracing that you can see here. On the 40 it's a little bit better, and on the 30 but the penetration into the material is not great on 30. But yeah, that's the results, something for you to keep in mind. So I hope this video was helpful and you can take something from this. For those of you that already have your machine, we would love to see your results, so feel free to share your projects on our Discord channel. Links to that and our other social medias in the video description. Check out our online store for 20% off the pre-order machines, and like and subscribe to see some more of these videos. Cheers.